And we are live. And good morning. Happy Labor Day weekend. And I'm so excited this morning because I am with two very fiery, committed activists, community members here in the Tampa Bay area. So we've scheduled for today to we're going to take an hour from this Labor Day weekend, and then we're going to hopefully go back to enjoying our families, our life, and rest some. But we are going to cover Tampa Mayor Jane Castor. Starting at 10 in a minute, we have a full hour. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. And 1 hour is not sufficient to cover all the problematic history of Jane Castor. Since her time as a chief in Tampa, chief of police in Tampa, to now, she's made recent promises of reform, but I don't believe it, me personally. And I'm going to state why factually. This isn't a matter of opinion. This is a matter of fact. She talks a good game, but she doesn't follow up with actions. And it's been her history. She wants to talk about, we got to look back to the history and make it well and offer shallow apologies or sentiments of she wants to better community relations. But I personally, because of her actions that speak louder than her words, do not trust what she says. We're going to commit a full hour, and we're not going to stop. I'm letting you know right now, Mayor Jane Castor, that we're going to do continual coverage on you and your purported promises of making good on reform. We're gonna do continual coverage. This isn't a one and I'm done today, September 5th, 2020. This is going to be continual. I'm going to continue to cover your history as you state your history. I'm going to cover your history with facts, evidence. And we invite the viewers, those of you who are tuning in or who will tune in after this has been recorded and is just a pre-broadcast or a post-broadcast rather. We're inviting you to share, especially if you live in the Tampa Bay area, to share with your family, your friends, because this is important, very important. I am so delighted to be joined by Bernice Loredan. She's a force to be reckoned with. God bless her. God bless Bernice Loredan. An individual, a soul who speaks valiantly and boldly truth to power. Where are the courageous souls that the founding fathers of this country entrusted with preserving what we have, what they gave us? Read the Declaration of Independence. They said we stake our lives, our honor, everything on this thing called freedom. And we got to fight for it, especially when there's people in power that just do a lot of talky, but they don't follow up with actions. We're going to fight, folks. Michelle Williams, another fighter. I'm delighted to have her joining this morning's discussion because she knows all too well. She's been in the game longer than me. As a resident of Tampa, I'm a resident of Tampa Bay and originally came from Miami in 1997 to go to Stetson Law School. And some years ago, I joined Michelle Williams when Bob Buckhorn, glad he's gone. Thank God Bob Buckhorn's gone. Okay? He was resisting efforts to create an oversight, a citizen review board. He didn't want any of that. He resisted ultimately because the people rose. Michelle was there. I remember I covered it as a young baby blogger. She was there. And it's there now, and we have to improve it. We have to improve the Citizen Review Board. So thank you for joining me. We're going to take calls today. We want to hear from you, folks. We do. We don't just want to talk ourselves. We want the residents, citizens, peoples that live in this area, the Tampa Bay Times. We're going to touch upon an article now that the Tampa Bay Times wrote. I have it right in front of me. That's why there was a slip with the Tampa Bay area. We want to hear from you, particularly those that live in Tampa, that are tired of the tyranny that is Jane Castor. Jane Castor, I have labeled her the tyrant of Tampa. She is a tyrant. Jane Castor is a tyrant. And this country, we gained our independence because we fought the tyranny of Britain. They were tyrants. And now we have a local tyrant who likes to talk a good game. But am I talking something that's untrue, Bernice? Bernice, go ahead and unmute yourself. You're muted. We're already getting calls. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, no, I would say, from what I've seen from Mayor Castor over the past couple of months, especially with the protests that have arisen after the death of George Floyd, is a pattern of behavior that has been very harmful. And we know for folks who have been longtime residents that this is not new, that as police chief, Mayor Castor oversaw the Biking While Black program, that the Department of Justice actually came and investigated the systemic racism that happened under her leadership with Tampa police. So these anti-Black policies are not
Bernice,
new from her.
I'm glad that you're touching on that, because you know what? The Biking While Black, the Tampa Bay Times did an extraordinary job of covering that. And you know what she did? You know what Jane Castor, who also have lovingly labeled the disaster, Castor the disaster. Go to disastercastor.com is a website that I designed, and we're going to document the history that she talks about that we need to look back on. I'm going to create a history on Jane Castor. And listen, we want peace, Mayor. I offered peace to you on July 20th. Sadie Dean, my client, was arrested August 21st. She was one of the protesters in Tampa. Okay. And let me, you know what? If I'm getting pelted, I just got a call, and we're taking calls for sure. Florida, you judge, do you have a comment for the show? Okay, they're calling. Listen, I grew up in Miami, particularly Hialeah, okay? I didn't fall off a turnip truck. If you're calling to disrupt the show by calling and hanging up, Jane Castor in your camp, it's not going to work. Okay? So stop it. Again, I'm coming on every Saturday. The meaningful reforms that you speak of, I want to see them. And until I see them, we're going to cover you, Castor, until 2023, the next cycle that you will be running in. Okay? I offered you a peaceful surrender. Sadie Dean, Tori Grogan, two of my clients yesterday, thank God. Andrew Warren, I know he has critics. No one is perfect. No politician will ever come in and be able to walk on water when they're elected. But you know what? Andrew Warren did the right thing. I contacted him and explained to him that the false imprisonment, which seems retaliatory, it was weak charges. Even conservative former prosecutors here, Bill Lowry and Pinellas Park, people know, ask them in Tampa. Bernie McCabe's office, he runs a tight ship. That leader who's been in office for a ton of years is law and order. Even Bill Lowry, the statement he gave to the Tampa Bay Times, said it's a weak charge in front of a jury. It probably is not going to meet beyond the reasonable doubt test. And so, you know what? Even still, detectives, and listen, I come with evidence. And in the name of the Constitution, Jane Castor, in the name of the Constitution, you're going to hear from me. You're going to continue to hear from me. I stood up in the Tiger Bay Club mayoral forum in 2019 when you were seeking to run for mayor, and I challenged you openly, and I'm going to challenge you. I came as a professional and a peace seeker, because you know what? Not only do I come in the name of the Constitution, here are the two books that are sitting right here next to me. The Constitution, God Bless America, and the Bible, the Bible. Yeah, that's the book for me. And God says, blessed are the peacemakers. And I contacted you when you're detective, and we're going to show that. We're going to show that. I emailed, here's the email. On July 20th, I emailed Jane Castor and Ashley Bauman. And Ashley Bauman's problematic, and I will touch upon that in a moment. But I asked two detectives from Tampa Police Department who drove over here to Pinellas, and they went to talk to my client, Sadie Dean. They were talking about an incident. near Tim Panels, the garage. There was a video online. She exercised her right to speak to an attorney, and I'm telling you, community, the Constitution says you have a right to remain silent. Exercise it. Don't ever speak. When some officer comes to try to investigate or question you, say, with all due respect, sir, ma'am, I'd like to speak to my attorney. Don't you let them use you to incriminate or to tangle you up in saying things that are not incriminating, to make it incriminating, to hurt you. Exercise your right to speak to an attorney. She exercised her right. And then you know what? I emailed Mayor Castor and Ashley Bauman, and I said, if you're seeking to arrest my client, let me go ahead and surrender her peacefully. There is the email, folks. July 20th. 10:27. If TPD is attempting to arrest Sadie Dean, I would like to coordinate her peaceful surrender. That went ignored, public. She wants peace and she wants better relations with the community. Does she, though? Does she, though? Or is Jane just a good charlatan? Is she just a good charlatan that talks, but no action? That's what she is. Okay? It went ignored. She wants to spend taxpayer money on a professor at a USF is telling her there's mistrust. The public doesn't trust you. And and she ignores it. An offer for a peaceful surrender, folks. And then what do? As the consummate professional that I am, I'm fiery. But you know what? I want to do right. I advise, let's do a peaceful surrender. Mm-hmm. She ignored it. And then you know what happens? I send another email, August 10th, to Jane Castor and Ashley Bauman. Second email on Sadie Dean requesting ability to arrange for peaceful surrender. And she ignored it. Because you know what? Jane Castor is reactive. Listen, this isn't just a Black Lives Matter issue. This isn't a conservative liberal. Conservatives in Tampa, are aggravated at the protests that are erupting. And you know why? You know why that is? I'll tell you why. It is because Jane Castor is reactive. She's not proactive like reform and sitting down with the protesters to create an environment, a climate, a relation between the Tampa Police Department and the community to avoid these things. She's reactive. And I'm going to show you how she's reactive. Let's go ahead and do a screen share. We're going to do a screen share and we're going to show Jane Castor's Facebook. There it is. We're going to show that. And here's what we're going to show. I will bring to your remembrance May 25th what happened. That day was the day that George Floyd was unjustifiably killed. We all were, our psyches were injured, all of us. For those of us with good consciences and good morals and good character, when we saw that, we were pained. I was stressed out. I had anxiety watching that during a pandemic and watching that on my TV screen. Okay. It was Memorial Day. Okay. Did she say anything on her mayoral Facebook page the next day? No. She talked about summer kickoff, 2-week camp. She didn't say anything and wasn't alarmed, disturbed, outraged, pained, and reacted with all the problems that she had from the biking while black. And we're going to talk about the Miami monitoring contract, but we don't have sufficient time in an hour. But again, I'm going to continue to cover you, Castor. And then May 26th, the city's Tampa Fast Pass program. Did she mention anything about George Floyd? Nope. What did Martin Luther King said? Martin Luther King said that rioting is the language of the unheard. They've been speaking to you since you were appointed chief in 2009 with the biking while black. You only apologized right before, and check the timeline, folks. Right? She said she did nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong. They brought in DOJ. DOJ said your agency is burdening black people without a benefit. And you didn't take responsibility or accountability, like you're now waxing poetic about, oh, we're gonna reform, we're gonna be more accountable. You didn't take accountability before, until a week before you announced in 2018 or 19 that you were gonna seek the mayoral election. That's when you started saying, oh, it was a mistake. But I want you to apologize and say that you're under your leadership, black people, 80% of the tickets that were given to bicyclists were black men, and that were used also to then result in arrest and other things, searching them. Okay, May 26th, she's joining Hazel Ortiz. Anything about George Floyd? No. Huh? Then May 26th, a bicycle shop. Anything about George Floyd? No. May 27th, City of Tampa, neighborhood and community affairs. Anything about George Floyd? No. May 27th, census. Anything about George Floyd? No. How about the same day? No, nothing. May 28th, nothing. COVID, nothing about George Floyd. Emergency Policy Group now, meeting on May 28th. May 29th, anything about George Floyd? May 29th, nothing. Nothing. May 29th, nothing. Mayor Castor and Chief Dugan provide update on protests. Oh, okay. There it is. Boom, there it is. She wants to say something once the protests, the burning of the city start. That's when she wants to say something. Okay. Otherwise, she doesn't really give a rip about George Floyd or community relations. Why? How do I know that? Because I offered twice to surrender Sadie Dean peacefully on a charge that was very weak and seems retaliatory, and she didn't take me up on that. She didn't forward that email to Brian Dugan to say, hey, look, there's a golden opportunity here. There's an attorney, Heidi Oropesa, on behalf of her client, a protester, because you know what? Protesting, seeking redress and of the government. I know you don't like it, Jane. You don't like to be criticized, but you know what? It's our constitutional right to do that. You serve the people. You are there getting paid by the people to represent them and to protect and serve them. Okay? So when someone protests and then all of a sudden your members are going across this bridge to knock on the door to speak to the person and do not advise that they're seeking to arrest or what exactly they want. And I've never in the 20 years that I've practiced law, never had a law enforcement agent fail to call me to return, whether we agreed or not. When we had the conversation and I said, listen, my client's going to exercise their right to remain silent. Thank you very much. I've never had an officer, I can say in 20 years, that failed to return my call. And for Jane Castor, a former chief who oversees the current chief, Dugan, to not avail herself of a golden opportunity, okay, of having someone surrender, that saves taxpayer money. Do you understand that? Everyone's budget right now is challenged, including hers. But last Thursday, they just increased. The protesters are calling for a defund of the police, and it's a little bit of a misnomer because they're actually asking for reallocation for good social needs. And what she did is she increased it by $13 million. And yet this is what happens, folks. And I'm going to explain it to you. When you offer to surrender someone peacefully, you're saving taxpayer money. She spent time, resources of her agency to try to seek to arrest, get a warrant for someone that their attorney was offering to surrender peacefully.
Haiti, can I interject real fast on that? What you just said is so profound. Haiti, and Haiti and I, we go back a few years now. And what you just said, Haiti, you remember, and Bernice, you know all too well because it's in our history. You remember back in the days when all the lynchings and the hangings were done, white people always had to have a trophy that they used to take a picture, and you see all the other white people smiling at the black person that was hanging from the tree, from the lynch, from the lynch pole that they had built in the town square. So what the Tampa Police Department, what they did, And what they did, they went over so they could have the trophy picture of Sadie Dean saying, guess what? We got her. Guess what? We got her. Guess what? We got her. You know, I just want to remind people that Jane Castor was a devout Republican before she switched her party to run to be the mayor for the city of Tampa. She switched parties. So, you know, I continue to tell people that blacks did not vote for Jane Castor. If you go to Craig Latimer's
That's
office,
true.
it will show you that blacks did not vote for her. It was the entrusted, like Haiti said, it was the entrusted liberals out in South Tampa that voted for her. But see, now that the protests have come up, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's shaking the olive tree and everybody's saying, hey, Jane, what's going on? We're being disturbed, you know, and you know, and something that Haiti pointed out and that she's already said. Not one time has this lady offered an apology about George Floyd. Mayors and governors all over the United States have offered an apology regarding George Floyd. We got the police policing the police. You got a former chief of police, that's the mayor, who's now over the police department again. How do blacks expect anything to get taken care of?
Listen, I just showed you her timeline on her wall. She said nothing about George Floyd. She didn't care about George Floyd until there started to be protests in her city. And you know what? Everyone has an interest in, that's what a law enforcement agency does. Keeps the peace. We all want peace. We all want to live lives of in a peaceful environment. So she's accountable, or should be held accountable, when, as you saw, I offered a peaceful surrender and she didn't take me up on that, or my client, on a false imprisonment charge that Andrew Warren announced they was dropped yesterday. Not only does she spend time, she doesn't go to try to seek the arrest, which, by the way, they were never arrested. Those who unlawfully painted back the blue. She didn't do anything about that. It's a double standard. It's not equality. And that's what the protesters are asking for, equality. So when you turn a blind eye on those who unlawfully paint a mural back the blue, but then arrest the ones seeking to paint Black Lives Matter, that's inequality. Folks, rise up and stand and fight. That's tyranny. It's unconstitutional. Unconstitutional. And you know what? She spent time of her officers to try to seek an arrest of a person that's asking to peacefully surrender. And you know what? Not only did she spend time doing that, they came out like twice and they were unable to arrest her, but they still don't have the person that hit Jay Passamore. That's good time that they could have spent trying to search for that person. But they spent time seeking a person that was wanting to peacefully surrender, and on a charge that ultimately was one that the state attorney said, no, we're not going to proceed on this. Here's the other thing. She came to my county, where I pay taxes, and used Sheriff Gulteri's resources. Pinellas County taxpayers should be upset. She used or allowed her chief to allow resources of a neighboring county to go seek for. I understand 11 days they sought to get Sadie, and then when they did, it was a tactical unit, 6 men that came, knocked on her door. Somebody said that they were a maintenance person. She opened. She was in a lazy dress, not properly attired, without undergarments. She asked to properly attire herself. They said no and hauled her away. I asked women, those in South Tampa and East Tampa and all sectors of Tampa, what do you think about that? And men too, I appeal to you. Would you like your wife hauled away? And listen, don't say no, but my wife wouldn't do something criminal. Well, you know what? There's white women protesting Pelosi now for the double standard that these politicians think it's okay to do as I say, but not as I do. Okay. We have a right to protest when government leaders do the things that as they do. Okay. And she had to be hauled away under those circumstances. So not only that, Jane Castor's not, I don't know about saying that she's not stupid. I'm not calling her stupid, but her level of intelligence sometimes, or maybe it's purposeful. Maybe it was vindictive. I don't know. But if I were the mayor and I had my city on fire months ago, and an attorney calls me and says, hey, can I peacefully surrender a protester? I jump all over that. It's saving taxpayer money. It's avoiding a situation where you're going unexpectedly, law enforcement, to arrest someone, and there might be something tragic as we continually see on TV. Even putting an officer's life. Officers have been shot and killed during these protests. So what are you thinking, Jane? What are you thinking? When Tampa mayor's police chief promises reform, do you believe that, Bernice? Do you believe that?
No, I don't. I don't believe that there's going to be reform. And how can there be reform when there's a $13 million budget increase that's, shortly likely to pass Tampa City Council? When we think about reforming, and when we think about really reimagining, what does public safety mean to people, right? Because as we're seeing right now in this moment, and to be honest, it's been going on for a long time. There's a long history of racism in policing. Policing actually did not exist in this country until slavery. So there's a deep tie with policing and racism, where they originated as slave catchers and to protect property. And so we've seen over generations how policing consistently maintains, white supremacy. And so what I would say is that if you truly want to, Jane Castor, if she truly wants to actually, become more accountable, let's start by listening to people in the community who have actively said that they do not want more funding for TPD. And you going against that is not being accountable. You can't be accountable and then just say you're going to do whatever you want to do. That's a contradiction to me.
You know what I want to see? I want to see community activists this Thursday. They're going to ratify, I believe, the budget that they just approved, that they just voted on.
Right.
I want to see the budget. I want to see the 13 million and the total budget for policing. How much of that is going to go to mental health intervention? Talk about Sydney, Michelle. What about that mental health? I've had clients that they've been on the wrong side of a law enforcement encounter and they were suffering from mental health issues.
Yeah.
Let's see some allocation of those 13 million or whatever the whole budget is go to better training. And I'm going to bring Owen Young or talk to him about covering his father that died because he was having a diabetic episode. During an account. They thought he was under the influence of alcohol. He was actually having a diabetic fit, which the symptoms, the reaction of a diabetic episode mimics that of somebody under the influence. We want reform on that. Talk about Sydney, Michelle. Let's allocate some of the money for mental health intervention between police encounters with people that are suffering from a mental health crisis. Let's do that. And I can talk about other stories. But again, an hour is not enough. So there will be continual coverage on Castor until there's meaningful reform and not just blah, blah, blah. Go, Michelle.
Sidney Richardson Sr., the fifth, was a young Black male who suffered greatly with mental illness. Sidney was a retired Marine. He served his country, and he was having an episode. A few days prior to his demise by the Tampa Police Department inside of his home, he went to the police department and asked for help. They turned him away. They called his son and they turned him away. Ultimately, 2 to 3 days later, he was inside of his home and he had a machete in his hand. TPD officers automatically shot and killed him. He didn't lunge at them. He wasn't waving it at them. He was just automatically shot and killed and assassinated right there in front of his family, right there in front of his home. His son, the memory of Sidney Richardson's death just came up in my timeline. So, being that I'm on the forefront of all of these assassinations by the corrupt police departments that we have across the United States and some of the ill will intentions of politicians here. So when these things come up in my timeline, it just does something to me. It's just like I'm reliving that moment all over again. Because one thing that for the last 401 years, what Blacks have seen in America, we haven't seen justice. Blacks, we don't know what justice looks like. You know, there's two important books that Haiti has in front of her. She has the Bible and she has the Constitution. Now, if you go to the Bible in the book of Psalms, the 73rd division, verse 8, it says, they are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning our oppression, and they speak loathly. They always want to talk about, white America always wants to talk about, ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Let's laugh at the oppressed. Let's give them more than
Right.
let's give them more than they can bear. But one thing that we are survivors, because we gonna let me tell you, we gonna take that 50 cents and make it into $1 somehow.
Right.
Make sure that we're able to sustain and kill, and take care of our family. What TPD did to Sidney Richardson, what they did to 16-year-old Javon Neal, shot him 14 times in the back, and he died in the arms of his 12-year-old brother and his mother at a birthday party, and they had the wrong person. They were looking for a older black male in his 30s with dreads. Javon Neal, 16 years old, soaking wet, maybe 95 pounds, and he was shot and killed 14 times. We have all of these murders. Jason Westcott.
Jason Westcott. You know what? Thank you for mentioning Jason Westcott. We're going to talk about him in the upcoming weeks with coverage on Jane. Here's something that I want to give props to. Hold on a second. I don't know why this is happening, but I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Let me just adjust this here. Look at this this is an article that came out in the Florida Sentinel, August of 2014. Look at Jane Castor. They're smiling, and she's saying, "I don't think people would react the way they are in Ferguson because the Tampa Police Department has built a relationship with the community. We are very transparent in our activities." So you don't have a good relationship with the community, Jane, when we just saw civil unrest, and even white liberals that support you were not very happy about that. You don't have control. You do have a problem. You do. And you're worsening it. You're exacerbating it by saying that you're for peace and not really being for peace. Did you all notice how the calls stopped, the initial calls? Somebody thought that they were going to interrupt my message, and that's not going to happen because I'm relentless. I'm putting you on notice. I came in peace. You turned down conditions of peace, so we're going to have continual coverage. Not only did Jane Castor not accept full responsibility after the coverage by the Tampa Bay Times of the biking while black, okay, she retired 2015 and then took a consulting job in Miami whereby 7 black men were killed in a period of 8 months by the Miami police. She was hired. I was astounded. I drove down there to Miami and I attended a meeting. Why did I attend the meeting? I was curious. You know why? And we're going to go ahead and share that. She took a job for like up to $150,000 a year. Okay. And what's the first thing when she's supposed to start based on a contract? And I'm going to talk about that in the coming weeks. The Miami contract. It's in disastercaster.com. You can look at the tab Miami monitoring agreement and see the problems with that. But when she signs a contract to start April of 2016, guess what? Look at what happens. Look at what happens, folks. Look at what happens. Former Tampa Chief Jane Castor behind schedule as monitor of Miami's federal policing pact. Huh? Look at that. She got caught not doing her job. And then she wants accountability and transparency. We'll see. I went and I attended a meeting that she had to go in front of the advisory board that was overseeing the DOJ pact with the Miami police and had her oversee it. When they asked her to present herself before the advisory committee to explain why she was late on overseeing a Miami police agency who had killed 7 black men in an 8-month period. Okay. And she's not doing her job. That's accountability. That's transparency. And when they started talking about the drafts of the reports that she had pending that she hadn't done and got caught by the Miami Herald not doing, listen, I'm gonna play a little excerpt of the video. I was there. I was present. I drove from Tampa Bay to Miami. Michelle knows. I asked Michelle, "You want to jump on and go down to Miami with me?"
I couldn't make it.
Let's.
I was there because she gave me play by play. It was live.
Oh, listen. They said they wanted the drafts of her report to be given to the advisory council, and she, at that moment in the meeting, says no, that was not public record discoverable, or that she had to give that. And a blogger, Al Crespo, called her out in front of everyone. I was there, and said she was wrong. And even George Weissong, the city attorney, said that he was correct. Let's take a little. Let's look at that. Let's go ahead and look at that. Hold on. We're gonna take a little look at that.
So she verifies that compliance. So that's the sort of concept. This is not an investigation and a response. These, the Department of Justice told us these are the things you have to fix. The city is saying we are fixing or have fixed these things, and the independent reviewer is verifying that they've been fixed. So as the months progress, if the city attains substantial compliance on any of the items for a period of 1 year or longer, that item goes off the list until ultimately all the punch list items have been satisfied.
She's at this meeting. She's sitting right across from this. This is George Weissong. He's the city attorney. Now, right at the mark 5640, they're going to ask about getting her drafts. Okay.
In compliance, substantial compliance, and Chief Castor may say no. If we say, but you're wrong, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it'll be Chief Castor's report, which the DOJ will look at and say, sorry, city, your independent or our independent reviewer says you haven't complied.
Here goes. Here's Al Crespo.
Which exemption are you referring to for the public records request for drafts?
There is no exemption.
There you go.
That's right.
So
Drafts
then,
are public records.
so okay.
Yeah, because I'd like to point this out. You said it was based on the Sunshine Law, Chief.
Well,
It's not the Sunshine Law, it's the Public Records Law. And there is no exemption for drafts. And in fact, once you publish your report, then all the documents leading up to that report are public. That means that the responses that came from the DOJ and the responses that came from the city of Miami. In addition to, believe it or not, the law also allows an individual who is the custodian of documents to give you any document they want, as long as there's not exempt information in there.
She got schooled. Jane Castor got schooled by a local blogger, Al Crespo, because she was telling everybody, I don't got to give you my drafts. That's not required under public records. And he just schooled her. And George Weissong, the city attorney there present, said, no, there's no exemption for that. Okay. Is she transparent? And you know who she has working for her? I'll tell you who she has working for as her communication spokesperson, Ashley Bauman, who I copied in the email. Look at here. Looky here. Looky here. Let's see this. Let's see the transparency that exists in the mayor's office. Why is Tampa Mayor Bob Buckhorn's public relations employee using a private email account for government business? You can read that article on floridayouJudge.com. I went ahead and I painstakingly documented everything with her emails. She's using her private email to respond to me when I asked for a public records request. And I caught her doing that. That's a no-no, Ashley. Hopefully she's learned since that time not to do that. But enough of the talk. Enough of the talk. We want reform. And I'm gonna listen, Bernice, I'm gonna fight with you, alongside you, rather, not with you, but alongside you, with a good fight. We're gonna follow in the tradition of John Lewis. We're gonna start some good trouble. We're starting some good trouble. And we're gonna do it peacefully because the Constitution says we have the right to peacefully assemble. I'm about peace. I'm making it known right here. Any activist, protester that wants to protest, we're going to strategize. We're going to do things legally within the law. And like you said, Bernice, a protest without any change is just a parade. That's Bernice Lauderdale I'm quoting from. Protests are good. We're going to do it strategically.
That's the truth right there.
I want change. I want changes in police policies. I want changes in maybe doing away with qualified immunity, with allocation of the police budget to be allocated to things that are meaningful reforms that are going to benefit the community as a whole. Okay. Better relations. They're there to protect and serve. When I was in elementary school, let's see if this is Florida, you judge. Do you have a comment or a question?
Just a comment. This is Jay.
Hey, Jay Passamore, how are you? How are you? And welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Jay.
I can have an opportunity to call in. Oh.
Yeah, you're on. You're on live, Jay. Talk.
Oh, well, first and foremost, I want to say thank you for fighting for my two dearest friends on the absolute ridiculous charges of false imprisonment that levied against them as another form of harassment and intimidation. So thank you for fearlessly fighting that cause to bring justice. Though it's just a drop in the bucket and we will be fighting for more, thank you for your continued support in this struggle.
And you know what? Props to your incredible advocate too, Gretchen Catherine. Congrats to her too for fighting the good fight as well.
Yes. Gretchen did a good thing, but I want to make first off that quote by Bernice. I might have to get that tatted or on a T-shirt at least. One thing that you know about Mayor Jane Castor and the city of Tampa leadership as a whole, they thrive on empty platitudes. They want to round table talk us to death. They want to focus group us to death. They want to, they went out and put hate on the street when, Black bodies, blood are still on the street. So, we don't want any of that. And the only thing that I would say as a correction is there's a difference between peaceful and nonviolent. I'm a nonviolent protester, but I'm not filled with peace. I'm filled with rage for my people. I'm filled with sorrow for my people. I'm filled with anguish. So I'm not a peaceful protester, but I am a nonviolent protester. And I want us as a whole to move away from calling ourselves peaceful protesters and peaceful protests, because that's just another tool and mechanism how they control the narrative of what we're supposed to be doing and how we're supposed to ask for our freedom and how we're supposed to combat oppression. But I see Michelle Williams on here. Michelle Williams, she was one of, when we talk about activists in the city and we talk about organizations in the city, Michelle Williams she didn't even talk to me. And she heard that I got hit by a truck and went out on her own to try to find out the identity of the person who hit me.
Wow.
Like, a Black woman in the city had experienced violence from a white supremacist, and she went out to try to fight for me. Now, when we talk about organizations like the NAACP and their president, Yvette Lewis, who spent more time advocating for a police chief Dugan to keep his job, that's concerning. When we talk about all these other Black-led organizations that think they have the right to monopolize how Black people fight for freedom, that's concerning. We held a press conference and to talk about police intimidation and harassment, and we were ready to think if TTD were going to arrest Shady, that they would do it at that press conference. We reached out to Black organizations.
That's true.
The only Black organization that came out and spoke and this was a gentleman from the Movement from Black Lives. Other than that, all these Black-led organizations who call themselves leaders and want to speak for the Black community of Tampa, but ain't never in the hood, ain't never in the streets, ain't never fighting for these people, they were absent. Mm-hmm. They left a Black woman to be left alone in her house and ambushed by a tactical SWAT team. Now, I only can think how different would those interactions have been if we had these Black-led leaderships come to that press conference and stand up for Sadie before the police had even went back to her house for a third time. So, right. Michelle Williams, I never tell you this personally, but I'm telling you now, I salute you and thank you for standing up for me when you didn't even have to. All these other Black-led organizations Y'all all cap. Y'all don't care about Black lives. You care about clout. You care about looking good. And you care about getting a pat on the back from the mayor and city council and the police chief Dugan and all the city of Tampa leaders. And we're off that. We're coming up on 100 days. Strategy is changing. We're down to recall city council members if they don't understand the importance and dedication of reallocating funds and putting them back in the community, especially in the time of pandemic. So we're gathering, and we're going to be, if we have to go to every neighborhood in Tampa to get enough petitions to start recalling these city council members, that's what we'll have to do, because if they don't fight for it, then they shouldn't sit on that diet.
That's right.
And Jay,
Yeah.
my understanding is September 24th, that there's a workshop. They're going to be discussing police, regulation of police. Okay. So for those of you that care about justice, what did Martin Luther King say? An injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And Bernice, yeah, I might, I don't have any ink on my body, but geez, it's tempting to get your quote tatted as well.
I'm telling you.
It's tempting because listen, protests are a beautiful thing. We have,
Right.
that's our, Jay, and you can stay on if you want for the duration of if there's another call that comes in, the call in is 813-221-9700. I'd like to have you, Jay, in the future for us to address the subject matter of peacefulness versus nonviolence. I'd like to unpack that a little bit more. I think, we have to find commonalities amongst us. There's maybe differences, but my heart is in the fight and in having the Constitution really lived out with equality for everyone. When people go out and paint the street unlawfully and say back the blue and nothing happens to them, but then those who wish to have a content message of Black Lives Matter and they are targeted, it appears, seemingly, that's a problem. That's inequality. You're selectively enforcing based on the message. That might even pose legal liability problems. But again, Jay went ahead and she got off. But Jay, thank you so much for your call. Thank you for calling in. Again, I'd like for you to come on in the future to join me and others to have these important conversations. Bernice, you haven't spoken enough. There's 15 minutes left. I want you to talk, you and Michelle, and I'm gonna stay quiet.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear from Jay. Thanks for calling in, Jay. And Jay also, State Attorney Warren also had dropped the charges against Jay, who was charged, with a battery charge for gently putting her hand on somebody. And, what I've seen is retaliation from Tampa Police Department for protests, for events that we host in the community. They retaliate. And so when they actually arrested Jay, not only did they arrest her on a charge that was like, it's not a battery to ask somebody to, like, hey, can you move out of the way? But they also arrested her very violently. An officer kneeled on her to the point where she was actually unconscious. And they left her laying on the ground for more than 10 minutes. I believe it was 12 minutes until they finally allowed medical care. There was a medic that was there to support the protesters, and they wouldn't allow the medic to help her. So, there was a time of 10 minutes where the community is standing there watching this person passed out, and the police are not even attempting to help her themselves. If they wanted to say, hey, we're going to wait for ambulance or EMS, they just stood there and just let her be unconscious. And so this just tells me, the reality is that these folks do not care about Black people. Jane Castor, and I've said it publicly and I will say it again, Jane Castor is anti-Black. And I believe that her policies clearly reflect that she's anti-Black. She set up this whole task force and had like a USF professor there. But, once again, you can't like set up this like task force. For me, a task force is like, that's something that you do as a politician when you don't want to actually do something. What is a task force? People just sit around and talk. We've been pretty clear around what the demands are to defund and move some funding from TPD and invest them into community funding. And instead of negotiating on that or having a conversation around that, a task force was created where, you know, it was also facilitated by her office, I believe, and this USF professor, which to me is strange. Like, you should have an outside party come in to kind of mediate. Like, why are you going to be the person who is problematic and then also like try and control the creation of the solutions to the problem? It just doesn't make sense to me, you know? So, you know, I don't, you know, I don't take that super seriously. So I just feel strongly, so strongly that, you know, this is going to continue. And to Jane, to Tampa City Council, exactly as Jay said, this is not over. Unfortunately, if this $13 million increase passes, the next step is a recall campaign. Because if you can't be accountable to what your constituents want, then you need to go, and I need to find somebody who's going to do the job right.
Michelle.
This is the hate that hate produced. The hate that they had for us 401 years ago, leading up into now, into the 21st century. This is the hate that hate has produced. Meaning, this is what their forefathers, their grandfathers, their grandmothers, their aunties, their uncles, this is what the hate has produced. That this hate is going to continue to be against Black people. This hate is going to continue to be against the Black race. The systemic racism that Blacks and the disparities that we have seen, there is not enough diversity teachings or courses that can be handled or given or taken right now. Not once did Mayor Jane Castor step into her mayor arena with the Tampa Police Department, where she is still their boss, and say, you know what, we need to have diversity training when it comes to the handling and any type of engagement with protesters. Now, I'm with you, Haiti. I always, you know, my favorite saying, I'm with you when you're right. When it has come down to the point where they have used overzealousness to arrest Black people. Again, let's collect this trophy. Um, Jay Passmore is still seeking justice for that red Ford F-150 truck that ran her over during that protest and left her injured. I did with anybody. I didn't get on social media and say that I was out here looking for this person. I didn't get on this. What I did, I took it a step further and went and started calling people that I know that work in higher places and say, we got a problem. I reached out to the Department of Justice. I sent them that video. I reached out to FDLE and sent them that video. Something has to be done. Somebody has to start saying the right things, even if it means going against the grain and making people uncomfortable. I tell white America all the time, your fear of me being Black, I didn't give it to you. So the only person that's going to be responsible for taking that crap away from you is your monkey ass, because I didn't put it there. If you scared of me, that's because of something that you was taught to fear Black people. I'm not finna walk around making white people comfortable because they're afraid of Black people. I'm not finna tone down my language because I will cuss you out, not curse you out. I will cuss you slap out. I'm not finna tone down my anger. So if you want to label Michelle Williams, I'm sorry, excuse me. If you want to label Michelle Nicole Williams as a Black angry activist, you go right ahead and you can label me as an angry Black activist. But you better believe in me in this. One thing for certain and two things for sure. Me being angry has always taken care and got the situation done for Black people. I'm not a Black activist. I'm
Right.
not a Black advocate. And I'm not a Black leader that's sitting around here on my damn ass waiting for somebody to hand me something. Because either you're going to give me freedom, either you're going to give me my civil liberties, or either you're going to stop this oppressive move, I'm going to come and I'm going to snatch it from you. See, I'm the soul snatcher. I will snatch the soul out of a damn white person if they get in my way of me trying to progressively move the black race forward. And see, what people don't understand, they automatically think, and I have to say this publicly because my attorney that publicly represents me say, Michelle, say your own story before it starts coming out. People automatically look at me, Bernice, and think that I'm a Democrat. I'm not. I'm a Republican, but I'm a progressive Republican that wants to move evolution and move this race forward. And that's the thing that we've had. We've had systematic racism from the Democratic Party. I'm not looking for no welfare party to make sure that blacks keep staying down. I'm not looking for no food stamps. I'm not looking for no housing. I'm looking for equality. We want jobs. We want housing, and we want to be able to live wherever we want to be able. I don't want us to be redlined. I don't want us to be redlined in certain communities there where blacks can't even go and live in certain areas. And now that we have the gentrification that's coming forward that has happened in the city of Tampa limits, you have pushed a race and a class of people from the city out into the country. Riverview, Brandon, Valrico, Wildmont, and Plant City, where now they are now the new targets. So how many more trophies are we going to have of white people saying and white police officers saying, I just got me another one. So guess what? 2 tails in the bucket, you know the rest. So that's just where I'm at right now. Now this her TV show. So I ain't
no. This is ours. This is ours. This is for everyone. I'm a registered Republican that calls out both parties.
So
because both parties have disappointed the people and have let down the people. Bernice.
Yeah. I mean, I would add, well, I'm registered with no party affiliation. So I've taken a step away from both parties. But I would say that, you know, I'm really glad about what Michelle brings up about, you know, how gentrification has really harmed the community. That's a big issue that we're going to continue to see more and more as Tampa continues to grow. The other thing I would add is, about Jay's arrest is that she actually was arrested after she had been hit by the car. So she very publicly was hit by this car. TPD knows she was hit by the car, and they decided to pin her to the ground and put a knee on her and hold her down until she was unconscious, after she was still recovering from her injuries from being hit by a vehicle. So, you know, I think Tampa Police Department chooses when they want to pursue something or not. And it seems to be when Black women in the city are being harmed, there's a decision made to not find the driver who ran over Jay Passmore. Stewart, who was also run over by a car over in Hyde Park during a protest. I was there when Stewart was run over by the car, and I witnessed it myself. I was there, and I watched TPD. After Stewart got hit by a car, I watched Tampa police arrest him for the damage that was done to the vehicle after this man ran him over. And they let the driver go. They did not detain the driver. They let the driver just drive away from the scene. They know who these people are. They have the license plates of the gentleman who hit Jay Passmore. They know who they are, but they are not revealing the identity of them to Jay or to Jay's attorney. They're not, they're not prosecuting the gentleman who hit Stewart. So in the city of Tampa, if you get hit by a car, you can actually be charged for the damage done to the vehicle after the person has hit you. So we have a problem in the city. We have a mayor who's anti-Black. We have a police chief who is frankly actively encouraging violence against citizens who are practicing their First Amendment rights. And it appears to be very selective when Black and brown people publicly speak out against injustice and oppression. There are violent arrests, there are beatings, There are people are being tear gassed. But when you're white people who go out and paint a mural in the dead middle of the night without approval, nothing happens. No arrest, nothing happens. You get a handshake and appreciation. So there's a double standard. Absolutely, there's a double standard.
Michelle, anything you want to add?
What Bernice said, that Tampa police, they have these tag numbers. And again,
yes, they have them.
This is the history. You have to understand that immunity that protects police officers from doing wrong. Look at all the videos that we have of blacks being assassinated by white police officers in this country. But because that they are protected under that immunity clause and that statute and that law, they continue to walk away scot-free. So guess what? It's like you giving a green light to other police officers around the world. Guess
right.
What? Go ahead and kill you a nigga and it's gonna be all right.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Listen,
exactly what they're saying.
It's incredible for those that are critical in their observations and keen in their observations. We have protesters that are protesting against injustice. They get arrested. Charges are dropped because they're weak. Okay, it's almost, again, we're going to repeat, appears to be retaliatory. But we have somebody hitting a protester with a truck. They have the tag, and that person's not caught yet. And another one being hit, Stewart, and nothing's being done to that person.
And Stewart is still being charged. Stewart has been charged for the damage that was done to the vehicle.
All right. Well, we're going to come back, folks. Please go ahead and subscribe. Florida You Judge. That's where these live broadcasts will be appearing in the future. Go to Facebook, Florida You Judge. We're also on YouTube, Florida You Judge. We're going to have continual coverage on Castor. That's happening. We want meaningful reforms, not just talk. You've been talking a lot. We don't listen to what you're saying. We listen to what you're doing. Okay? So thank you for joining me, Bernice Loredan. You, I hope, will continue to come back. And if they don't do right by we the people, because the government, it's a social contract. You're there for the people, not for yourselves. Not for prestige, position, title, perks. It's for the people. By the people, of the people, for the people. We're going to rise. We're going to organize. We're going to unite because you are there for us, for the people. And so we're going to continue to come on. And Michelle Williams, I'm sure, will also be part of the conversation. She's even, without even tooting her horn on her Facebook, she's out there trying to, Detective Clouseau, trying to find she is on her own dime, not on TPD's dime. This like we had a guy. Listen, I'm gonna be good. I was about to say something, and I'm gonna be good. We have to better relations. I want a better relations. This is an invite. Jane Castor, you're welcome here. I would love Jane Castor to have a one-on-one with you here on Florida You Judge.
Ooh.
I would love. I am extending an invite to you, Mayor Jane Castor, to have you come on Florida You Judge, just me and you, and have a discussion. I want to have a discussion with you. If you are truly, or you know what, if you want, if I'll take myself out of the picture, you can come on with either Michelle or Bernice Loredan. If you want better relations with the community, I'll set it up so that you can come on. I'll stay quiet. I'll just be the technical director and producer of the broadcast. And I want to see you engage in meaningful conversation with the people. Florida You Judge, thank you for joining me. Thank you, Bernice, for being with me. Thank you, Michelle, for being with me.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Until next time, have a wonderful Labor Day weekend.